Okay, so you finally decided on what direction you want to go. Hi guys, I'm Michelle Samuels for Why Goes ID, and today this is a follow-up from not only just some insights into the housing and security part, mostly housing pertaining to living abroad, but also connected to the UK market itself. So what we're gonna do today, we're gonna go through an overview of renting in the UK market. I have my slides as a guide and it gives you some insight into what's going on. So let's get into it. So you finally decided to make the move. You've decided that you want to live abroad. And one of the places that you've decided to live is the UK. So one of the things that might be on your checklist is it temporary or permanent housing when location has been decided. So you want to look at your location from the viewpoint of actually, let's go back on, if we go back a bit on these slides, you may want to look at the countries by location and subdivisions. So from the viewpoint of global mapping by country, look at the divisions of the territory. Example, in the USA, you may want to look at the metropolitan states. That's how it's divided. In the UK, you're looking at boroughs, metropolitan districts, the towns, the city, and by postcode. And you can check local government structure and elections gov.uk, which is www.gov.uk for more information. So you may want to live in the city or in the country. There are different variables to be considered, but we're going to discuss that in a different video. Let's move on from the fact that you've already decided what the location is based on your research or based on your connection to family or friends, or based on a combination or research, or based on your connection to family or friends, or based on a combination, or it could be job opportunities that you put in place and you need to be positioned at a specific place. So you'll need to decide, is it temporary or permanent housing? Do you qualify to be able to, if you've gotten to the point where you're actually in the UK under certain terms which are acceptable and legal, then you should be able to be qualified to be able to rent in the UK, because there are some checks that they'll actually do, but we'll talk about that. So is it temporary or permanent housing? You want to look at the house prices and the rental rates. In this video, we're talking specifically about the rental rates. Where are the nearby amenities? It's a funny one, the pronunciation, meaning supermarkets, playgrounds, or the parks, restaurants and schools. What are the facilities connected to the location that you're going into? Because if it's in the country, some supermarkets, parks, restaurants, and schools may be of a specific distance or very limited. So you cut cost on living in the country, but the facilities will cost you to be able to access, or they're a bit of a distance away. What is the commute time, or the distance, or what is the time it will take to be able to travel to do your shopping, work-related activities, or if you have family and friends that you want to visit. Access to hospitals and doctors, that's a definite, that would be factor. Generally speaking, I can't speak for all neighborhoods, but especially in London, there are a lot of somewhat nearby hospitals, but there are doctors that are positioned in specific areas. So you want to look at the transport links and the public transport system connectivity to motorways, airports, and bus stations. So if you're going to be traveling regularly, or if you're going to be living outside of London and you need to come in, how long does it take you on the different motorways to get in? And do you understand how to transport yourself that way? Well, you have GPS and sat navs now, which are very helpful. You want to look at the education and schools. So what are the school ratings and the rankings, the distance from home for the child if you are children to travel, and the distance from home for you to actually be at work and pick up your children on time, which is very, very important. I think at one point I saw something a couple of years ago where you could relook, you could get one of your children or one child or children into a school that is closer to your workplace. I'm not sure if changes have come into play pertaining to that, or you need to actually be of a specific location or realign yourself to get a job that's close enough to be able to pick up your children on time. So you want to look at public opinion, recommendations, public or private, green area, so there can be some balance for exercise, relaxation, and enjoyment. Why is this so important? Because living in the UK, it's the weather is good to a certain degree, but it can change very easily. So especially now, since the whole COVID scare and so on, people are more inside. They're adjusting over time to socializing and interacting. So going to the park and looking at tourist spots and you might want to look at the environment that's connected to the area that you live in. Are there excessively busy activities? Is that conducive to what you want? Lots of traffic and human footprint while you're in your home. You can hear the cars passing. Is that conducive to what you want? Or tourist spots and factories. What's the air quality, the impact on health, and the major roads that are connected to where you live? So weather and environment, flood risk, yearly extreme destructive weather pattern. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the UK because it depends outside of London. I haven't had a real extreme circumstances, but I've seen one and two. But maybe the US you might want to look at those aspects of the weather patterns in different locations, not only the United States. What are the crime rates and the antisocial behaviors? Now, just some housing stats, moving stats for you and facts. So when you're moving house, there are some things you might want to think about, which is that based on the research that we found on the number of home mover households in the UK 2022 Statista, it's noted that average number of times people move home in their lifetime is a minimum of 8 to 10. So if you're buying a property or if you're renting, you may have to brace yourself for the possibility that you'll have to move a couple times over your lifetime. And why does that happen? For various reasons. It could be just opportunities that present themselves, changes to the constructs of how you operate. It could be the landlord wants back the property, or the property is not, it doesn't fit into your changing lifestyle and different variables. Average number of households moving monthly and annually. You want to look at where are they moving to and from? Why are they moving? And if you have to move, how much will it cost you? Distance, logistics, the moving company, or method option. So how are you going to go about making that move? Is it a furnished property and it's a light move, or is it that it's a heavy move where you have to transport furniture from one point to the next? Ask yourself, why are people moving from this location? Could be it could be limited job opportunities. It could be a list of reasons that we're not focusing on today, but you might want to do your research around that. Homelessness and housing options, numbers, and the qualifying criteria. So if you find yourself in a position where you're compromised for your housing and security from a rental standpoint, what are your rights or what are your options, and how do you qualify to be able to access those? Refurbishment and improvement costs before and after move. So you want to factor in those costs before you move out of one property and also before you move into another. House prices and deposits plus mortgage qualifying, and in this case renters and tenant checklist, rental deposit and additional expenses. These are just some facts that were covered, and you can refer to the link that's attached. Some of the disruptors to your housing may be inconsistent or unsafe housing, unstable neighborhoods, and/or breaches by housing supplier publicly and privately. This may disrupt you. You are totally innocent in the situation. You've done what you're supposed to do, but there are situations that arise that it could be like conflicts between owners and agencies. It could be conflicts between what the landlord's obligations are and how that is fulfilled because he has a disruption or she has a disruption on her side. It could be unsafe housing, unstable neighborhoods, and/or breaches by housing supplier publicly and privately. This may disrupt you. You are totally innocent in the situation. You've done what you're supposed to do, but there are situations that arise that it could be like conflicts between owners and agencies. It could be conflicts between what the landlord's obligations are and how that is fulfilled because he has a disruption or she has a disruption on her side. It could be personal disruption, business, financial disruptions. You want to look at the possibility that there may be system failures, not to go into too much details of that. This is referred to as well. We have all the references to support where we've gotten this information from at the end of the video. So child welfare, hospital discharging, transitioning, support or identification of mental health issues in the individual that may relate to the system itself. It may be that you may have to move house because you've been through a traumatic event. So domestic violence, is there a crime that's occurred? Is it a natural disaster which is forcing you to move? Or is it that you're a victim of different forms of abuse? Are you in an environment where it's overcrowded? So you moved in originally, your family grew, or where you moved into there were more people than you expected to, or it was just convenient for you to just basically be there for a minute, but it's not conducive to any long period of time. So what are the high rental and in this case rental rates as compared to the income that you have? And is it too high for you to have that affordability to live in the property that you're planning to rent? It can be that some of the disruptors are loss of jobs, income, investment, or finances. Could be a disruptor, government, international, and market changes. Physical and mental health issues. That's a repetition, traumatic abuse, traumatic occurrences. Sorry about that. Separation or divorce. Did your relationship not work out and you need to find somewhere different to live, or were you in a position where you were kicked out, or do you have rights to stay where you are and the system supports that, but you feel like you're at risk or you just don't want to stay in that environment? Circumstances that result in eviction, landlord change in circumstances, agency and homeowner conflicts, bankruptcy, and financial losses of landlord or someone. So it can be totally out of your control. When you're thinking about renting a property, you want to look at your household characteristics. So what is your family type or category? Household characteristics. So what is your family type or category? The age requirements. Can 2 children share a room? The sex of the children as well. Is it a boy and a girl or 2 girls? And is one child over 16 or more than 1 children over 16? You want to look at the family within the constructs of the education demands or the education and background, the wealth of the family. Or is it a single family unit or is it a single parent, or is it a partnership? 2 people who are partners, are they married? What is the marital status? Is it an individual on their own or his or her own? Number of family members, so the total number of family members, are there any dependents and non-dependents? Preferences and the income levels as well. Factors to consider: Other factors, when are you going to actually make the move? And the timelines between making the move, when you need to get out of the property, if the landlord has asked you to move out of the property and they have to follow protocols, and you'll see that moving ahead in the video. You want to look at when are you going to transport yourself and the goods in time to move into the new property, and what checks need to be done in between. And we'll go through the checklist that is ahead of us. So the type of housing you're looking for: are you looking for an apartment or a flat? Are you looking for a single family dwelling? Are you looking for a detached home? What can you afford? Unforeseen events, we spoke about unexpected cost impacts. So are there any events that may arise that impact the family from a cost perspective that it affects the rent status of the family? Changes to the family, so did somebody get pregnant, or is there a change? Did somebody start to care for somebody else? Shifts from status, so housing, rehousing, example, renter to buyer. So there may be a shift that you want to do, and you want to do the calculations around moving from rental to the position of being the buyer. Factors to consider: control and discipline. Where are your priorities? The ability to fit into the qualifier brackets, and we'll speak about that. The environment and the opportunity, and what are the milestones, meaning if you want to be renting a property, if you want to live in the, let's say, outside of London or in the country, do you want to move back to London? How do you determine what are the steps, and at which point in time do you actually say, okay, I'll do 1 year, I'll do 2 years? And financially, how do you position yourself for that? Emotional reactions, resilience, and commitment. So you want to think about your state of mind with so many changes, and the possibility that minimum you may have to, as a renter, you may have to move 8 to 10 times in your lifetime. How do you deal with loss, credit issues, financial challenges, because those things can come up as well. Cost of living in a rented home. So we're gonna go through some of the costs outside of paying the rent. So you on time payment as much as possible, or renegotiated with the landlord based on maybe event changes. You want to look at some costs that may be connected to, depending on what's in your contract. But even if something is in your contract and it stipulates that somebody is in charge of certain types of issues with pests, you may want to deal with it because you're constantly in the home, and it may take time for the landlord to sort it out. So pests, daily waste, emptying the rubbish, recycling, if you do so, usually it's encouraged. Broken or damaged furniture. Some contracts include drains, skirtings, or wall damage. Any damages that are outside of the landlord's responsibility. Electrical issues that can only be resolved by suppliers. Sometimes there's an electrical issue and there's a caretaker, or there's somebody that comes in and they can't deal with it, so it takes time to be able to call in the actual suppliers to get, and then you'll have to book an appointment. What are your contingencies in the meantime? Cleaning of heaters, in between the grooves of the heater, so that the breathing, the air is clear, and you don't say, okay, I've cleaned everything, but you close the doors, turn the heating on, but there's a lot of dust that's actually in the heating itself, the heater itself. Cleaning of windows, internal and external. Some landlords may deal with the external. You may realize, I want my windows to be clean while I'm here at the property or the location that you've chosen to be at. Controlling mold and some damp. If it's extreme, some landlords will come in and deal with that. Repainting and decorating with landlord's approval. Are you going to freshen up the property? How long will you be there? Grease control in the kitchen. So after cooking a while, grease may build up on the walls. Garden maintenance and floor maintenance and care. So all these require you to buy the necessary cleaning products and Also, it takes time and effort. So you need to be cognizant of those costs that you will add to your plan, because you remember you're doing projections, and what we're doing here, we're going over the different stages you could potentially go through, and how to build a plan around it, and also how to do the projections around it to fit into moving from one state, meaning state of being, or one lifestyle, to the ultimate lifestyle direction that you want to move to, and what can you put in place to ensure that happens as much as possible. Rental and tenancy checklist. So you want to check that it's an assured short hold tenancy, preferably, and there were some 2019 charges ban that were put in, preferably, and there were some 2019 charges ban that were put in place by government. Holding fee. We'll go through that. 2019 cap on deposits. It should only be a maximum of 5 or 6 weeks. They can ask you for rent in advance as well. So deposit plus rent in advance. The tenancy term should be a 6-month minimum. Affordability 35% from a local housing allowance standpoint. So your income should probably, when it comes down to renting, about 35% of your income should go to rent when they're evaluating you. Documents, they'll check your identity, immigration status, your credit history, references, references sometimes dependent on the landlord. What's your employment status as well? Accredited schemes, client money, protect, money shield, property mark. You can refer to client money protection as well when you've actually given in a deposit. And those links that are attached, you can, if you need further information, you can check that out. Smoking and pets. Are you allowed to smoke in the property? Can you have pets? What size pets can you have? Are you not allowed pets at all? Fixtures and fittings, smoke alarms and carbon monoxide detectors that has to be in place, right? You have the right to ask who is the owner of the property as well. Landlord insurance. Other checks. Before moving into the property, you want to do some inventory checks and cross-reference that with the agent or the landlord. Do the meter reading so you're up to date of any in terms of payments connected to you moving into the actual property and not paying for somebody else's bill. You may have pay as you go or a billing system. So you may pay as you go. You may be given a key for electricity or gas, or you can get a bill that comes through to you after a number of weeks. We'll talk about that some more on another occasion when we're going through budgeting and finance. Well, yeah, budgeting and finance, yeah. Just basic budgeting, because remember, it's a plan. Emergency and handyman contact. You should know who to contact in the event of an emergency. If there's a handyman when they're out of office, if it's an agency, then you should have that contact. And some HMOs, which are houses of multiple occupation, meaning multiple people reside in the property, they rent by bedrooms, may have, a checklist that or they may have requirements that are government regulated, or you want to check somewhere about any rights or checks pertaining to living in a single family dwelling. Landlords must give tenants how to rent government guide, deposit paperwork with deposit protection in a government approved scheme, gas safety certificate, energy performance certificate, record of all electrical inspections, evidence of smoke alarms and carbon monoxide alarms in good working condition, proper notice, only legally removed with a court order. So you can get all this information from the How to Rent Guide, the guidance on the Tenant Fees Acts, Landlord and Tenants' Rights and Responsibility, Deposit Protection Service, My Deposit Tenancy Scheme, property. If there's anything, you can go through the Property Ombudsman and the Homes Act 2018 should give you more information too. Permitted fees, rent, refundable tenancy deposit capped at no more than 5 weeks, where the total annual rent is less than 50,000, or 6 weeks rent where the total annual rent is 50,000 or above. Refundable holding deposit capped at no more than 1 week's rent. Payments associated with early termination of the tenancy when requested by the tenant. Payments capped at £50 for variation, assignments, or novation of tenancy. So reasonably incurred cost if higher. Okay. Payments in respect of utilities. These are permitted fees that can be is expected. TV license, this is a license that they have in this country. Council tax payments, a default fee for late payment or of rent, and replacement of a lost key, security device giving access to housing were required under a tenancy agreement. Now, some places are unfit for habitation, and this is discussed on shelter.co.uk, I think it is. The reference is attached. If there's damp and mold growth, excess cold, excess heat, asbestos and manufactured metal fibers, biocides, carbon monoxide, lead, radiation from radon gas, which is airborne or in water, uncombusted fuel gas leaks in gas appliances, volatile organic compounds, crowding, and space. There is more information if you go on shelter.com, I think it is. Hold on, let me check. Is it shelter.com? Shelter.com, yeah. So some fees are banned. Viewing fees, any charge for viewing the property, tenancy, setup fees, any charge for setting up the tenancy or contracts, checkout fees, any charge for leaving the property, third-party fees, any charge the tenancy or contracts, checkout fees, any charge for leaving the property, third-party fees, any charge for anything that is done by someone other than the landlord or tenant, but that the landlord must pay for. Those are banned fees. Don't forget, you don't pay that. Rental prices in London. So we're looking at London, and this may give you some insight into there may be variation based on market changes which have occurred since we extracted this information online, and this information can be found through research on the agency websites when you look into rent a property. So a one bedroom is about the range of 925 to 1782. So that means that your qualifying income may be between on a monthly basis 2,775 to 5,346 depending on the location in London. So it may be like 33,300 going up to 64,000 for a one bedroom, depending on what location or which postcode you're living in London. So it could be southeast, southwest, it could be in the city, it could be up west, it could be north, or it could be East London, variations in the prices. Two bedrooms, you're looking at about 1,150 to 2,500, and your income qualifier per month, it may be about 41,400 to 90,000 annually. So monthly, you should be earning about, calculation wise, depending on the type of property, because this is mostly for private properties for individuals who are normally fully employed or at least partially employed, or it's two people in the household and the income can be calculated from that viewpoint. So bedrooms, you can get it as low as 3 bedrooms for 1,400 to 4,800. So annually 50,400 up to 172,800. 4 to 5 bedrooms, and this is rental prices in London, 1,750 to 6,500. Depending on the location, it could be a HMO type situation and just a combination of people living in the property and varied income levels. All the incomes combined may come to between 63,000 and 234,000. So we've attached some references here. So you want to go through maybe agents listing, citizens advice if you need any information, local housing authority that is in charge of housing, citizen advice, repeat again, sorry about that. Shelter, money advice, helplines, and right to rent checks, manual right to rent, home office checks as well, which more than likely will be carried out. Statista.com, shelter.com. These are references that tells you where we got the information from. Gov.uk, the Homeless Hub, Deloitte Insights, facts about moving house, migration, that's nature. The link is here. London rent prices, simplybusiness.co.uk. Okay, guys, so we're gonna close right there, and I'm hoping that this video was insightful and it's helpful to you, so you can make more calculated decisions moving forward. Even if you do come over and you're living in an HMO situation, if you're employed, you know what direction you need to be going, what checks are expected to be done, and also what are the expectations that you should have from being the person that's going into the contract to rent the property, and the landlord should be able to supply you with certain information, as well as what your rights and the landlord's duties and obligations are. And remember, nothing is fixed in stone. If you do find yourself within the scope of challenges, project for that. If you can save or be prepared or have some contingency in place with family or friends, even then that can be challenging, because that's unpredictable, because people have their own scenarios, especially here in London, depending on your support mechanisms. It may work for you, or you may have to resort to government to be able to give you more insight. So that's why we've attached these reference points, so you have more clarity before making the decision, and you can be more strategic if you're planning to make the move to come over to this side. All right, so you guys take